Good evening. My name is Ken Smith. I'm the Mayor of the City of Vader. It's my privilege to officially call this a regularly scheduled Vader City Council meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. on this Thursday, October 26, 2017. Will be now our opportunity to engage in a roll call, which will be conducted by our City Clerk, Jill Nielsen.
Andy Wilson.
Present.
Jason Daly.
Here.
Joe Shy.
Here.
Mike Parsons.
Here.
Leona Sander Hunter.
Still here.
And Mayor Smith.
Also present. Thank you all for being here. We have a full quorum. So we would now invite all to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Shy, would you lead us in that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Grateful to have so many people here with us from within and without the community. I will now proceed with the Mayor's report. Item number one, I'm pleased to report that the Risk Management Service Agency has given us a grant for the purpose of improving city infrastructure, in particular storm drains. So that's in the amount of $5,000. So that was unexpected and fortuitous, since we had some issues that we could throw some of that money at. I'd like to bring to your attention the status of our loan application for our wastewater plant design funding. Jill, do you have any specifics on that you'd like to share with council?
Just that we presented the application for funding so that we could finish the design. We have most of the money that we needed, but we didn't have all of it left over from the funding package that we've been using already from Department of Ecology, so we had to reapply to get the remainder of the money. And they will give us a list. I believe it's the first part of February when we'll find out if we make the list or not.
Yep. And the deadline for that was this past Monday? Or was it the Monday before?
A week ago.
I think it was last week that we sent it in.
It was a Monday.
Yep,
It was a week ago Monday.
So it is in, it's official. And that's a big deal.
Who does that go through? Is it Department of Commerce?
That's the Department of Ecology. loan.
Ecology.
Mhm. And
So-
we're hoping that they'll also give us the 50% loan, 50% forgivable loan package that they gave us last time. That's their most generous offer. So
We're initiating that process. It's a significant enterprise. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Then I felt it would be appropriate to review for council and audience awareness the upcoming budget meetings. So we happen to have that
that's what I forgot to get. Joe's got it.
okay. We conducted a budget workshop today for this council meeting. Our next meeting will be on November 9th. And we'll have a public hearing during our city council meeting. So that's our next activity. And then you will get a preliminary budget from the mayor's message on November 2nd. That's a starred date. So, and that's, I think, sufficient for now.
On November 2nd?
On November 2nd, yes. You'll receive the preliminary budget from the city staff.
That's a first Thursday, so it's just available to pick up. Is that correct?
That's the date that the state requires that we have that preliminary budget for you. Or is it preliminary or proposed? I can't remember.
It says preliminary.
Okay.
Okay. Last item, I could tell you that we have officially closed the park restrooms at a particular Worden Park. An individual within our community decided to pretty much trash the men's restroom in that. It has been cleaned assiduously by a member of the public, but our city employee took care of that, so now they're closed for the season. So we'll wait until spring for them to reopen. And that's all I've got to report at the moment. So let's proceed with council reports. Any thoughts or comments that council members would like to share with one another?
Didn't we talk at one time about having a porta potty when those things are shut down, having a porta potty sitting outside of that park so that the people that do use the park have some place to go? I believe we did.
I don't recall that conversation. Really?
They did talk
Yes.
about it at one point.
Maybe I wasn't there. But, so we could certainly add that to a future city council meeting, if you'd like.
I think that's an option that even, there's a lot of children that do go play at that park, and it's better than them running over, going behind the nearest house or the church.
There is an individual who's been maintaining the restrooms and would like to make a comment. Do I have 3 council members? Yes.
I'm in sympathy with what's being said, because that's why I started doing it, and that's why I didn't worry about it. They went in there multiple times. I saw more damage each time because of mothers with children and a big mess they'd have to face, and that's why I started cleaning them. But I don't know if we get a porta potty, what's going to keep them from trashing it?
Well, this isn't intended to turn into, would like to hear, okay, go for it.
If I could be given a date when that occurred, I could check. We still have a security camera pointed at the restrooms from the church. So it's possible we could, if I could get a
Okay, maybe we could look into that.
yeah, if you could, someone could supply me with an approximate, even a 24-hour would be most helpful.
I think we could.
I could talk with the Reverend after the meeting.
Okay, all
I've
right.
got some
Thank you for
ideas.
that. Excellent. Appreciate that. Any other council comments?
I wanted to bring up something. I've gotten a lot, or the city has gotten a lot of calls about me demolishing a house that I just took down. If they want to, I've given my phone number out. If you have concerns about my permits or how to do it, I'd love to teach you how to do it, because it is a long process. We went ahead and had the asbestos test. After the asbestos test, it goes to Southwest Clean Air Agency. Once we get that done, then we get the permit through the city. Here's my permit. If anybody, once again, has any questions about what I'm doing at my property, please feel free just to call me. We don't need to bug the city about things like this. Thank you.
All right. Council reports. Any other thoughts? Yes, okay. With that, thank you for your commentary. Let's proceed now with the regular agenda approval from council meeting for this evening.
I believe we need to add the jail services resolution to the agenda tonight.
Yes, thank you for remembering that. So I think it would be appropriate to add that. Maybe you'd like to make the motion to add resolution 16-2017.
You can do it all as one motion. Approve the agenda
Let's do that.
and add item numbers. You don't have to do 2 separate.
Anything else you want to add? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of resolution 16-2017, the interlocal for jail services. Can we add it as line item 0? Do it first. 0. Hold on. Let's do it first.
Okay. It's your motion. Okay, you've heard the motion submitted by Mr. Chai to approve the agenda as written with the insertion of item number 0. Council to consider resolution number 16-2017, the jail services contract. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Parsons. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay. Next item, approval of minutes from our last city council meeting and our last city council workshop.
I'll make a motion to approve the city council meeting minutes from 10/12/2017 and the city council workshop meeting minutes on 10/19/2017.
Okay. Mr. Daly submitted a motion to approve those minutes as written. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion is carried. Voucher approvals.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers. 1st of October 2017 in the amount of $52,808.44, with the new end of October 2017 in the amount of $3,740.92, for an October total of $56,549.36.
Great. Mr. Shai has submitted a motion to approve the voucher expenditures in the amounts noted. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Parsons. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, now it's our special privilege to hear a report to the City Council and members of the public from Mr. Jim Mabbitt, the Superintendent of the Castle Rock School District, who's with us, and Mr. Ryan Green, the Principal of Castle Rock High School. So we will turn the podium, Mike, over to you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back here again, and tonight what we're going to talk about is if we get to an eventual bond, and our board, it looks like our board of directors are planning on doing that. The big question that they had for the community is, where do we place our middle school? Because I will tell you, our middle school is beyond its lifespan, well beyond its lifespan, and it's the only building we have that can no longer continue as a school very much longer. We have our high school and our elementary school building, both of which can be remodeled and have a whole lot more life left in them. Structurally, the middle school is not, unfortunately, in that category. So that's what's coming up on the ballot. Some of you may have seen in your voters pamphlet for November 7th election an advisory vote. And I thought I was coming up with something novel, a novel idea of having an advisory vote on the ballot. And then you've probably seen the legislature, then they came up with 3 of their own, except there's a big difference between theirs and ours. Theirs has to do with rescinding something they've already done, which I've talked to a whole lot of people who want me to explain that to them, and I don't want to ever be explaining anything on behalf of the legislature, I'll tell you that. But ours is asking for advice to our board on something that has not been done and has not been decided. So we're hopeful that all of you and all of your friends, relatives, family will go ahead and pick one of those on the ballot and help our board. Tonight, we wanted to give you a few bits of information. One, Ryan Green, our high school superintendent, high school principal, almost promoted him there. Ryan, see, you went right to the pay raise. Ryan, in a couple minutes, is going to show you some slides. These are some examples of slides of some of our facility issues. We have a whole lot more, but we know we had limited time. And then we have Thomas Johansson here with us tonight. He is with our Education Service District, ESD 112, with a construction services group. And he'll be talking about the 2 sites and some of those pros and cons of the sites. Just very curious, how many of you received a card in the mail yesterday? Wow. How does that happen?
I can check my mail.
Okay. Hopefully, you'll be getting them, because they went out yesterday, went out on Tuesday. So hopefully you'll be getting them soon. But it's a card that looks like Brian was holding that up. In fact, he can pass some of those out in a few minutes. But those you almost had it in your hand there. Those will give you an idea of some of those pros and cons that Thomas is going to talk about. Just a couple more comments from me, and then I'll turn it over to Ryan. This is my second year in the district. Last year, I was hired in February of 2016. I had my other job I was doing already, but I tried to come and drive around the district. I drove around Vader, I drove around Riderwood, I drove around Castle Rock, and then I looked into the facilities because I suspected that there were some issues. Well, sure enough, there are a whole lot of issues, and quite frankly, our students are not getting the kind of facilities to work in and to be competitive with students that are around us in surrounding areas. Our facilities are quite old and in bad shape, and you'll see that in a few minutes. So I started putting together a facilities team. We've had Vader representation on that team, and looking into where we're going to go with our facilities. So again, I suspect that our board will be attempting a bond issue sometime next spring, probably in April, and they will be getting that word out. Another thing I want to mention to you, though, is there's some very complicated changes that the legislature did with school funding. So we have a maintenance and operation levy like every other school district in the state has, and our levy on your tax bill has been about $2.70 a thousand of assessed value. The state has now said that those levies must drop to $1.50 per thousand of assessed value. So that's a large drop, and yes, that helps in everyone's taxes, but then how does that money get replaced for how to run our school district? So the state says that we're going to get additional money from the state, and we're going to find out in about a week where we stand. Some districts are going to lose big time in the state, others are going to stay about the same, and others are going to gain. We don't know where we are yet, but we'll find out here in a couple of weeks. But the bottom line is there will definitely be a drop in property taxes on that side of the ledger, and then we'll be putting out our bond issue, and obviously we're hoping that folks will see the need here. So Ryan, why don't you take us through some of the problems we have with our facilities?
All right. And I have Brian Keeley here. He's been around a lot longer than I have. This is my third year, so if we have questions, we can ask Brian. Okay, so this is the elementary school. We're on the roof looking down at the older part of the building. All the wood that is vertical wood on every four windows is rotting at the bottom. There's a picture. Here's the old music building. As you can see on the right hand side, again, the wood is rotting away from the building. We were looking into repainting that this summer. However, unfortunately, it's all lead-based paint, and so it costs a lot of money to take it all off and put it on new coat on. So we kind of, at this point, stalled a little bit to see where the bond was.
By the way, I ask a trivia question of every group. Do you know when the last time lead paint was allowed on buildings? What year?
1978.
Oh, man, that is exactly right. 1978.
The last time it was.
Kind of gives you an idea of our facilities.
This is what I was explaining, the vertical boards that are rotting at the bottom. This is still at the elementary school in the music room. These are, again, elementary school on the left-hand side, original doors from way back when. On the right-hand side, there's no room to put internet wiring. So you'll actually go down the hallway and see all the internet wiring and just stapled to the side of the wall there. This is actually the roof. It kind of looks like a freeway, but it's the roof. There's all it is paper now. All the granules kind of have gone away, and obviously experiencing 3.5, 4 inches of rain on Saturday. We had some leaks in the roof at the elementary school. This is how we maintain our carpet. We have, this is the middle school now, sorry. This is worn out carpet. Instead of replacing it, we use duct tape, and that's a method to keep it from fraying and causing trip hazards.
The original carpet from 1986.
86. Original lockers from when it was built. Most of them don't work. Most of them are inoperable. These are the cafeteria tables at the middle school. They're extremely heavy, and they actually slide into the wall. Majority of them don't fit in the wall anymore because there's different parts on it that we've had to kind of Frankenstein back together again. We've had a number of situations where there was injuries based on the fact that these are so heavy, trying to get them in and out and put them away. So there definitely needs something that needs to be replaced at some point. This is the bathroom. It's hard to tell, but there's on the left-hand side, there's a structural crack that goes all the way up the wall there, and it goes over the top of the stall and then down the stall. So cracks, you can look in the middle part, and that's just a worn floor that has to be at some point replaced. The interesting thing about the thing on the right, the picture, is that the middle school was built in sections at different eras, and some of it has wood flooring and some of it has concrete flooring. And whatever that gap is, it's shifted, and so there's a little lip, and they have to replace the tiles on a consistent basis because the flooring is not even. This is on the right or left, excuse me. You can see the uneven, broken tiles on the floor. It's pretty hard to see on there. The bus garage. This was originally a metal shop way back when. They converted it to a bus garage. There's actually window panes missing. It's all single window panes. Again, that's on the middle school campus. Cracks in foundation. One of the things that Jim did when he came into the district is he painted the middle school building, which is a fantastic way of kind of adding to the life of the middle school. However, like Jim will say, the best part of the middle school right now is probably the paint job on the outside of it. There's cracks in foundations all across the front and the back of the middle school. These are old systems that have been in place probably since the 60s. On the left-hand side is it the fire system?
Left-hand side is our
HVAC system. Thank you. And again, the parts, we can't get parts for them because it's so out of date, so we have to kind of jerry-rig it and do new systems in there. The intercom system, again, that is a very old, out-of-date, antiquated a system there. On the right, we have stairs that are in the middle school that we have to lag bolt the plastic on so it doesn't create trip hazards. So there's actually lag bolts. You really can't see them right there. High school. This is my pride and joy. So there was a concept that when this was built that facade was meant to rust. Not a very good look, I don't think. Also, it was designed for a flat roof, and it was a California concept. Unfortunately, we don't live in California, so we have large pools of water on there when it rains. All of the gutters in the entire school have been taken down because they've rusted off, so there's no gutters in the school at all. And there's another picture later on, but underneath, all it is not particle board, but sheets of plywood that were painted over. And there's actually spaces where the plywood is eaten off, and you can see the underlaying framing. Original doors, original flooring in the school. If you look on the far right one, there's actually bolts that go through that we've tried to, again, Frankenstein the doors back together again. So there's bolts and different things all over that door to kind of hold it together. We do have security issues because they don't latch. And so you have to physically go and yank on them to pull them shut. They're so old and out of date. This is kind of embarrassing. This is the boys' shower area. I've never seen a shower area like that. Usually there's partitions or some kind of closures or different things. That's pretty open, and there's a reason why our 9th, 10th graders don't like to shower. That's obviously beside the point. On the left-hand side, there's a stall that's been out for years. The plumbing, we can't get plumbing for it, so it's just out of service. This is the roof. Again, it looks like just paper. There's cracks in the roof where we have leaks all the time. This is the old system for the HVAC system. We can't get parts for it, so they have to, again, kind of make do and do Band-Aids for the HVAC system. These are bubbles in the high school roof. So when it's hot, these bubbles will get really big, and if they pop, then that creates a hole in the roof, and that's where leaks happen. So you really got to be really careful when our maintenance department are up on the roof when it's hot, because they will step through the bubbles. Not a good situation. This is that part I was telling you about. If you look on the left-hand side, all the metal has gone away, and so you can actually see the studs up through the roof. We have a lot of birds that inhabit those areas, and so we're constantly trying to clean off the bird feces from the side of the building. Okay, that's kind of a snapshot of the ugly truth. We do have some issues at the high school, the middle school, and elementary school, and now Jim's going to talk. Maybe Thomas.
Brian's going to pass out both of those things he has there, and while he's doing that, Thomas can start talking about the two possibilities of where to put an eventual new middle school.
Hi, I'm Thomas Johansson with Construction Services Group, and we've been with ESD since '94, I believe, helping school districts. My personal experience is 30 years as an architect doing K-12 schools, pretty much about 95%. So what Jim asked us to do is look at the two sites, and so what we tried to come up with are the positives and the concerns. We've got two sites that we'll look at. One is at the existing elementary, and then we'll look at the high school site. One good thing about Castle Rock, I think, is you are property rich. You have property, you have places to expand, so we see no need of purchasing other new properties in the future. We're working with some districts that we're in the several $1 million to get the property, so that's a cost that you don't have to have. Just to touch base on the middle school. Originally, it was a high school, I think it was 49. Then next to it, they built a gap, and there was the junior high, and then they tied it all together, and they built the high school, and now you have, that's why this building's doing this. It's all different years, framing, no sprinkler systems. Part of the building is concrete. It's going to be extremely difficult to upgrade it. It's lived its life. It's served well. So that's what we look at. So let's look at the elementary school site. This is the current elementary site, but this is the current property line what the district owns. And I believe that you purchased that back in '97. So very good purchase. I believe there's like over 30 acres plus in that area. So the acreage is suitable for a middle school in today's standards by OSPI, Operations Superintendent, Public Instruction. We're kind of looking in the middle school. We'd love to have 20 acres. We've got it. We've got it on this site. We can make it work great. One thing we look at is we try, well, we'll talk about the road access in a minute, but we try to have a bus drop-off separate from parent bus drop-off and parking and teacher parking. I want to separate those two. That's a safety issue, and in today's schools, that's probably a number one priority when you're looking at trying to integrate parents dropping off and buses, so there isn't that conflict. And in the new school, I can guarantee that you're going to have all, the shutdown, lockdown options, button push, all doors locked down, limited access on perimeter doors, and designed to today's standards and what models are being used. One good thing about this site, we have water and we have sewer, two big items. Today's schools have to be sprinkled. No way around it, it's required. So we have water pressure and we have sewer available on this site. One thing we were asked to do is the middle school has a bus barn. We're now, would there be room to integrate that in there? And we feel yes, there would be. So you could have all your buses in one location, secured with a fence. Right now, they're storing them here, and they're storing some up here at the middle school. And we might look at, it might be on the ballot to look at a metal building for a bus barn, facility to repair. One thing also, we've got plenty of space for athletic fields, and it could be a possible share with the elementary. I know you don't have a play shed currently at the elementary. I think it kind of fell down. And so that's something you could look at. Maybe there's a shared activities, and that's something that we would look at. So those are the benefits. Pretty good. But our concerns. Right now, this, and then it goes up, is the city limits of Castle Rock. We recommend that they annex this property into the city. Their fees are lower when we do permits. It's going to be local. And Richard's not here, but he's also on the planning commission at Castle Rock, so that's a positive. I mean, to get that done, it's something that's got to be done. It's really not that difficult. The other issue, one issue, is from here over, it's declared a critical area. Now, we haven't done a wetland study or any of that yet, but we know that that's something that's going to take some permitting to look at to see what's going on. And in all these studies we're doing, we're trying to figure out what's the cheapest and the most direct route for the district, because we know you don't have major dollars. The road access. This is pretty much our only way to get to Huntington. This is going to require a major traffic study, hopefully not lights. I'm sure left turn lanes, right turn lanes, and street improvements are going to happen along that area. So that's something that would be done with a traffic engineer, and we would work together with them and find out. They count cars, they're going to look at your population. The other thing is, that's the entrance for the elementary. So now what do we have? 900 to 1,000 students in buses, and parents' cars coming in this one entrance. Probably not the best. It's not really the best for traffic. One thing about, you do own this property, but to me as an architect, visually it's hidden behind the existing school. We like to have the schools up front where you can see. That's for security issues. And the district is asking for money. You're going to have a brand new school. I kind of hate to hide it in the woods, but that's just the way it is with this property. So, and obviously we can't move the elementary at this point. So to me, that's a concern that the new school is going to be hidden behind this one. Oh, and we just found out that a lot of this had fill, and I think it was probably from Mount St. Helens. So that's, for me, that's a foundation question later on when they do geotechnical services to look at. And what does that mean? We did Woodland High School, we had pilings, very expensive foundation, not just a spread footing system. So, yeah, another thing was brought up, 60 trains a day plus going through there. Some don't carry the nicest stuff, and there has been accidents. So we know there's a buffer here a little bit, but still it's a concern, something to look at. Oh, and we do know for this little lake, this is a drain that goes into the Cowlitz River. We know that's going to be designated a riparian stream, and it's going to be as a wetland, and it's going to have a buffer. And at this point in time, I'm not sure what that buffer will be. Next one. now we'll jump to the high school. Good thing. District owns a lot of property. And they have a unique relationship with the Clark County Recreational.
North County.
North County, sorry. Wrong county.
Yeah, that's right.
I was at Shales today. So they have baseball fields, they have soccer fields, they have a nice parking area. This is open, and I'll touch on that in a minute. And then obviously, you have your boat ramp. So, and that's all accessed through here. So, anyway, good thing. Sewer, water's available. Well, we're not having to run lines. I've had to run lines a mile or more, and you really don't want to know what that costs. I'd rather put it in the classroom. We looked at that, and we think there's some spot areas that we possibly could have a new maintenance building if needed, or it could go on the elementary and be on that side. Because I don't think that's a bad thing, putting that back behind the school. It would all be rural. We had good meetings with North County. They've got softball fields here. Again, we're trying to get that visual acuity, moving the school up front. But what it does is there's 2 softball fields and 2 baseball fields. And we think that there'd be a joint venture with them to let the girls use one of these or 2 fields. They have their games in the evenings. This gets heavy use, and the soccer field on the weekends. It appears something like 68 games played. How do you do that? So it's amazing. This currently right now is the practice field for football and soccer. And also there is a nice soccer field too over here, so we're looking at that. So what we do to meet Title IX is we're going to have to replace 2 baseball fields. And in the scheme of things of this project, that's not really that bad. The recreational group has really wanted to put a baseball field there, and possibly with lights. Just because of all the use, it seems like your baseball is highly used, heavy use. And that could be a nice one. And then we're looking at, I think we can get another baseball field in there, a regular size baseball field. So it's a concern, but it's not really it's not a record of the project. And what I like about this one, we got clear sight lines. We're not coming in on a curve like on Huntington. And we've got 2 great access points. This one feeds the high school, and then we can do some parking similar to what the high school has up front, and then position the building. And again, these are just kind of graphic bubble diagrams. They're just kind of, will it fit? And we talked about square footage. We haven't really set that yet, so, but there's plenty of room there. We've got the 20 acres, and it's
okay.
All the pluses.
Thank you, Thomas. So we have 2 viable options, and we're just going to take a couple more minutes, and we'll wrap this up. But Ryan wanted to talk about from a high school perspective.
Yeah, and that's why I one of the reasons why I come to these community forums, because I really think that the benefit for having a middle school and a high school on the same campus outweighs the middle school and the elementary school. So for our high school already, twice a day we bus out special ed kids from the middle school to the high school. We already share math curriculum between the middle school and high school. We bus out kids for sports because all the sports complexes are over here. There's nothing at the middle school at this point besides a field that for football use. So currently we have cross-country kids, soccer kids bussed out after school's over. Curriculum-wise, a passion of Jim and mine is CTE, and right now we started a welding program at the high school. I'd like to be able to extend some of that programs to the middle school. And having the middle school on campus would really help those. Like floriculture, I know that Ken and I have talked about the addition of maybe having our Bloom team kind of work with Vader and work out here, and having that access to having middle school kids participate in community service or floriculture would be beneficial. And then I'd like to start middle school in a wood shop type atmosphere program, and so having them so close together really creates a partnership between the schools. Academics obviously is the number one thing, but athletically having 3 gyms on a campus is really beneficial for some of our youth basketball and some of our youth wrestling. Having the ability to share gyms and share facilities, I think really is a benefit for our programs and moving forward. Our schools are big. Our high school is over 400 right now. The middle school is over 300. So if you put those all on one campus, you're looking at 700 kids. If you end up putting the middle school at the elementary school, you're going to be right around 1,000 kids. So again, it's having those numbers and having those kids dispersed between 2 campuses. So I really, like I said, I really come out here to those community forums just to push the idea that beneficially for academics, it weighs really heavily on us trying to get the middle school out with us, because I think it'd be a good partnership.
And just 2 more things. Happy to have Mayor of Castle Rock with us tonight, Paul Hillenberg, and you wanted to mention something, I believe.
Well, I'm all for the, I'm on the facility committee for Castle Rock, been on it for 3 or 4 times now. But I was never for the elementary school at the high school site, but, weighing in all the academic things that can happen, and I think it's the best site for a new middle school.
That the high school is?
Yeah, the high school site, yes.
Couple things I wanted to mention. And that is, obviously, not here tonight to talk about an eventual bond issue. The reason being is I have no idea what that will be. We will have a lot of teams, and hope some of you will be involved in that, helping us to determine what that will be. But I will tell you, and I think my track record already speaks for itself, I will tell you that within that bond will be something that happens out here in Vader. Guarantee that. It's just a matter of what the community wants that to be. We have a piece of land that we can do a whole lot of things with. So hopefully you'll be thinking about what that needs to look like. And then we need to remodel the high school, we need to remodel the elementary school, and we need to build a new middle school. We won't have enough money to do everything we'd want to do. You never do. But hopefully we'll have a good number of people from all of the communities involved in a number of teams, helping us to prioritize what those things ought to be. The board will be waiting to hear all of that news. Right after November 7th, as soon as we hear from all the communities as to where you think this middle school ought to go, whether it's on the elementary campus or the high school campus, then we will get busy right away forming teams and starting to look at where we go forward. So don't know whether you have any time for questions or not.
Well, we are really bumping up ahead of our clock here, but how about 2 questions?
Sure.
Okay, there's a question.
I'd like to know the status of the preschool. It is supposed to open in October.
Yeah, could we save that till after let's come back to that. I know you want questions about.
But I'll be ready to answer that question.
Yeah.
It's beyond my control, I'll tell you that, but I'll tell you in a second.
That's the question.
Does the school district have plans for the alternative sites? Middle school won't be in use anymore, so they're going to have that land and then the land behind the elementary school that goes to the...
There's two options that the district will be looking at. One of them is a big, huge, gigantic passion of mine, which is skill center. Several of you have heard me talk about a skill center, and that is, I believe that we ignore about 75% of our K-12 students because we say college, 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 and then they wake up after graduation and say, what do I do with my life now? What we ought to do is have trades for juniors and seniors, and there are 20 skill centers in the state of Washington, and not one of those can our kids access because of geography. We ought to have a skill center. Right now I'm working on a project for a skill center, now have 11 school districts interested, and way more than that with businesses, trades, and agencies. So we are working towards a skills center, and my hope is that the state funds those separately from school districts. That we could get funding to upgrade that middle school just enough so it wouldn't be able to be a middle school, but I think it could be the beginnings of a skills center. So the second option would be to sell that property. The property is worth far more with the building not there. That's how bad that building is. So if we're going to sell that property, we'd have to tear down that building. There's a cost there, of course, and then sell the property.
One of the things I'd like to add, I'm sorry, there was a figure that was given to us at the last community forum, and I'm not sure who said it, I don't know if it was Thomas, but it's going to cost 150% more to build the middle school at the elementary school than it would at the high school. So you're looking at a lot of extra permits and a lot of extra studies that has to be done in order to have it at the elementary school.
Yeah,
So,
just to clarify though, the 150% number is actually, it would cost that 150% more cost of new construction to renovate that middle school. So that's the 150%, but no question the elementary school site would cost us more to put the middle school there than it would be at the high school site. Can I answer the preschool
We're
question?
ready to shift gears and talk
Okay.
about
You have a
our
question,
real preschool.
I have
with one more. I'll say, wait, sorry.
two questions. One, you kept saying baseball fields. How many of these fields, athletic fields, are multi-purpose?
Soccer fields are definitely multi-purpose. Baseball, softball fields can be multi-purpose. In fact, they are used for different things. But what we were getting at is there are a lot of leagues in this whole area that utilize our fields.
Okay. And the second one is, I'm under the impression that the Olympia has not figured out how to fund the schools. Is this,
That's correct.
okay.
Still waiting.
That's correct.
Yeah, all right. Well, shall we shift gears and take a minute or two to discuss the status of our preschool?
Yes. You need to know there's no one more frustrated than me about this. No one. I put my heart and soul into this. So the engineer just finished his work.
The site plan,
Just a couple days ago?
Monday.
Monday. And so that report is now being turned into the city sometime this week. So we have to go through a whole process of eventually getting a permit. We don't have a permit for that building. We couldn't start a preschool if we wanted to. And I'll tell you why I'm so frustrated right now. That's not the city's fault. It's not our fault. It's just the way things have gone. So it's taken a lot longer than we thought it would. But the good news is that 6 weeks ago I had 5 preschool kids ready to sign up. Now I have 9. So they're ready to go as soon as we open the thing up. So my new hopeful date is December 1st. I'm hoping to start it December 1st. But first, we have to get that permit, and we have to, we've had so much help. You have helped us tremendously on how to find that sewer line, but unfortunately, we still have no success. So the next thing we're going to try to do is we're going to try to spend, I hate to spend this money, but we're going to try to spend a couple $1,000s to do what, Paul?
That won't work.
Oh, that won't work. It's all that and tough.
We're gonna try some ground penetrating radar, but
Will not
since
work.
this is so clayey up here, it will not penetrate the ground.
So we're gonna have a meeting here very soon and figure out whether we just have to punt and go to the pump process, which is going to be fairly spendy, but I'm telling you, we're going to open up that preschool. I'm telling you without a doubt. Sorry, I'm throwing things at you.
Is it gonna happen, or should I look?
No, it's going to happen. Please don't look elsewhere.
He signed up, he's ready to go.
I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, I'm telling you. You don't know me very well, but other people in this room do. I'm not letting go. It's going to happen.
I heard my plans weren't any good after all.
Well, they were good plans, but what happened is things happened between then and now, unfortunately. So that's the issue.
There was nothing that shows anything. We had the engineering company look, they spent hours, days looking at those plans. and that doesn't show anything for that site.
And that's the same company that had the actual stamp on your plans.
Is that
So anyway, I'm gonna get those back to you. So I really appreciate it.
That's all right, I don't need them, but.
Well, no, I want to get them back to you for
Okay,
sure.
one last question? Okay, go for it.
I just want you to appreciate the blood, sweat, and tears. Well, blood is an exaggeration, but the sweat and tears that have gone into getting those 9 children. One family, between the mayor's visit and the 6 nights visit and my visits, it took 5 visits. We were told it was supposed to open in October. I wish we had known sooner that it's not. I hope we don't lose a lot of the 9 children. This is the most important thing as far as Hallie's concerned. This happened in this town for a long time. This is one of the few issues that people have been united on. This is not a minor matter. It's
Now, do you think I think it's a minor matter?
I'm just telling you,
I'm-
it's
but I-
not
but
a
I-
minor matter.
Okay, I'm telling you, it's a major matter for me. Major. I mean, I think your mayor was shocked when I called him up the first time and said, hey, we want to bring and start a preschool. I am brokenhearted that we haven't started this already. But when I hear that we've had 9 kids, I literally in my office jumped up and clicked my heels and they were laughing at me. But I will tell you, I'm going to do everything I can to open up as soon as we possibly can. Now, I'll tell you, you've gotten some calls from our office, right?
I've had a call.
Yeah, so we've tried to call the parents of those kids and try to let them know we're working to make it happen.
It would help if you could send out a letter letting them know when you believe it will be open, why it hasn't been open.
I'll do that if you don't hold me to that date next time. Because you're asking me to say another date. We're trying to do December 1st, and I'm hoping we can make that. But you need to know, there's nothing that I can do that makes this happen.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
We've had 6 teenagers, 2 adults, we've canvassed, we've done all this.
And you don't know how much I appreciate that. I do so much appreciate that.
That's fine.
And we're going to open up that preschool. I'm telling you we're going to do it. And when we do, it's going to be a big ceremony out here. I promise you.
Well,
Thank you so much for your time. I know we overindulged, but
no, in behalf of the city council, before we break into applause here, on behalf of the city council, let us express to you our appreciation. Your presentation is compelling. We feel your energy. You've convinced us that Castle Rock knows that we exist and that our children are worth your investment. So, Jim and Ryan and Paul, I know your efforts to dig, and this other gentleman, let's give them a round of applause for what they're doing.
we'll keep working.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's hope this. Okay, with that, having been completed, go ahead, Ryan, and if you need to take something.
No, I got it all
That's
ready.
ours.
Oh, okay.
That was quick.
All right. Yeah, feel free to either stay or feel free to depart if you want to. Now we'll move into the regular part of our city council meeting, which happens to be our public comment period. Thank you.
We have 6 people signed up.
6 people, okay. So that's 6 times 3 would be 18 minutes. Are we okay, council members? 18 minutes for public comment. All right, with that, let's proceed.
Okay, Judy Costello.
Judy Klein, thank you.
Okay. Tracy Durham.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've come tonight to dispel some of the rumors and misinformation related to our parking lot. And I do have some answers for those that have been complaining to the city. I would appreciate if there's any questions, if those could be directed towards me instead of, if you want to go over to our church with a tape measure, that's okay. We do have cameras all around the building and in the parking lot, so you don't have to sneak around to do those measurements. The history of our parking lot is there used to be a ditch that ran all the way across the front of the parking lot, just like is to the west of us in front of Annie's place. About 1987, we had a lot of people at the church, and I was there
that were driving into the ditch, falling into the ditch, a lot of accidents. So almost 30 years ago, we got permission from the city to install our own culverts at our expense. Johnson Quality Rock and Napa Vine provided the culverts and the rock, and we filled in that entire ditch, and with the city's permission, that became our driveway. The entire, which we are allowed to do, the entire frontage of our lot is our driveway, because that's the church, that's where we park. So we had installed more than 20 years ago drain system. We have 4 parking lot and property drains around our building, including in our current parking lot. We have them behind our building. All of our gutters drain into the city's storm system with an agreement with the city more than 20 years ago. And if you drive over the church, you can look, our gutters go right down into the ground, and they're attached to the city storm system. We decided through a lot of saving and a lot of expense that we wanted to pave our parking lot. We've had a lot of vandalism. We've had issues with cats leaving bombs for us to walk in and issues like that. So we've saved money over the years, and we spent a considerable amount of money to pave our parking lot and our driveway. Our driveway extends across city right-of-way to the street. Now I know every parking or every driveway in the city that is on the other side of the city right-of-way is allowed to have a driveway. And so we paved our lot and we paved our driveway to join out to the city street. I also know of no city ordinance that does not allow us to paint our driveway or put stripes or moonbeams or stars or anything else on our driveway. So if there's an issue with us painting stripes, okay, that's on our driveway. That was one of the issues that complaints have been about. The other issue is related to our storm drain. Now the storm drain, what was installed at our expense 20 years ago, we had a storm drain that ran from our parking lot into the culvert that we installed and paid for that dumps into the city storm system. Okay. When we got the original bid for our parking lot, it was told us that we may not have to do any more work with the storm drain because we already had one. When the construction company came out and looked at it, they said it's not large enough to handle the capacity. For now, instead of having gravel, now you have asphalt, so there's runoff, and the city storm drain is not sufficient or adequate to carry that amount of runoff.
Oh, I have to report that 3 minutes have just expired. Would the council want to hear more from this?
Go ahead. I'll make it quick.
2 more minutes?
Okay. It was determined that we must add a larger storm drain at the cost of $2,500 that the church paid, and we tied into our culvert that we installed almost 30 years ago. The storm drain is sitting on the property line between the church and the city. It was engineered, it was installed by bonded, licensed contractors. The church people, we did not do that. It cost us $2,500 to have that installed. And if you saw recently all the water we had, the street was flooding on one side, our parking lot was absolutely dry. It also picked up stormwater running down the street. And so we're very happy with that. And then lastly, there was a rumor that the city knew what we were doing and that we were contacting. I did not call the mayor. I did not call the city hall. I did not talk to Jill. I talked to none of the city council members about our project there because in my estimation we were not building anything. We were only covering our parking lot, which we had in 2012. We also paved in front of the church. There was no permits required, nothing like that. So there was no discussion with the mayor and myself. We were under the impression because we're not building, the city has no requirements for paving as far as I'm aware of, as far as covering an area as well. The last thing, and then I'll quit, is we did not get a permit for the overweight, which is under discussion. I was told that the city is in discussion on that. I did find out from Wallace Quality Rock that a fully loaded dump truck weighs 59,000 pounds, and that they have made numerous deliveries this last week in and around Vader. They've never ever got a permit. The permit for that truck would be $600 according to your fee schedule. For a $200 load of gravel, you need a permit for $600. So I recommend the city revisit some of those fees, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, excellent. Yeah, obviously, as you know, it's not the intent to initiate an interchange from public comment. But you are also well aware that item number 3 on the agenda is street weight limit regulations, which relates to the ordinance, which is still in process. So that's where we're at. We're good. So thank you for that. Let's proceed with number 2.
I think I can finish up this time. I think you're all right. I
Great.
think so. Really quick.
Scott Gross is next.
Oh, yes, Scott Gross.
Thank you.
806 and 810 D Street. I just wanted to comment really quick on item 2 that's on your talking list for later, which was for the cat update.
Yeah.
I know that personally my household has facilitated 3, 6, 9, 10, 14 cats personally in the past probably 2 months of time. So and there's more work being done also. And then regarding 3 and 4 on your list, or 3 or 4, with Annan Road, I don't know what the situation is. I haven't been around here long enough to really know what's going on. But to the east of the Little Crane, that where the stop sign is, and that whole roadway there, I think it was a conversation at one time. I'm really curious as to why that isn't. I don't know if it's a weight limit thing from the trucks and the deliveries, or what that is, but that's a pretty common area there, and it seems to be the worst in the city. That was all I needed. Thank you.
Okay, next.
May Heiner.
Okay, May. I'd point out while she's approaching the microphone that questions such as that are easily presented to the mayor for after the meeting or even during the week. Those are good questions.
May Heiner, 1247 State Route 506. I guess this is something that's bothered me for some time, is that I believe that all of you were voted in by the citizens of Vader. And through the citizens of Vader, you apply what you believe is good for them, and also what is good for the city and for the urban growth area. And since I am in the urban growth area, I don't have a right to vote for any of you, but you all tell me and other people within the urban growth area what is good. So I just think it's totally unfair that the urban growth people that live there can't vote. That's it.
Okay.
Next is Kevin Flynn. Yep.
I'm Kevin Flynn, 1198 8th Street. I've tried to keep quiet, but this issue about this ordinance 1603 and revised 1604 came up. And I listened to all the arguments, and there's some things that are being overlooked. We have a group of people who decided to get attorneys and fight the city and cost the city lots of money. That money is money myself and a few other people in here paid as taxes, and the city uses for city improvements. Now they've had to pay anywhere from $4,000 to $12,000 worth of legal fees to defend a frivolous charge. I call it frivolous because the ordinance 1603 was passed with a unanimous vote by the council. Two of the people on our city council. One of them is part of this group that is against it, and that's Judy Costello. I went back and I pulled out the minutes of that meeting.
Excuse me, no
Yeah,
name, no
yeah.
name calling, please.
Excuse, I'm moderating the meeting, if you don't mind.
Please do it.
I'm not name calling, I'm stating a fact that's on the
Well,
city minutes,
the
public
objective
record.
is to make sure that there's no impugning of a personality or person.
I'm not, I'm stating a fact.
Okay, duly noted.
On the minutes, you were at that time a council member, and you passed that ordinance. So it doesn't make any sense to me why you would then turn around and sue the city, or fight or complain to the city, using an attorney when it's an ordinance you passed. Andy, he also passed the ordinance, and the last meeting, he said he disagreed with it. Well, if we read the ordinances, they're very clear. We shouldn't be voting for something we don't understand. We should find out what it says before we vote on it. As far as the penalties, I do agree. Some of those penalties are absolutely ridiculous. $45 to put a thermostat in our house, that is crazy. Those all need corrected. So we talked about that earlier to review it. I don't want to get into nitpicking. I really appreciate the fact that the city has come a long way and done a lot of stuff. And this city is a far cry better today than it was 10 years ago when I moved here. I think if we all would take a little bit more time and use the process. Andy is still on the council. He doesn't need to come and talk about it. He can come and put, use his position as a councilman to put it on the agenda and open it up for discussion to lower or raise the fees. We don't have to bring in attorneys to fight. We have council members. If we would all sit and discuss that, it can be brought up through the council members, and then that is then discussed and it is settled. We don't have to have attorneys costing the city thousands and thousands of dollars. So I'd say for everybody, let's use the city government the way it's supposed to be done, come in and talk, and then talk to your council members and get it put on the agenda. When I was on the council, people asked me to do things. I did them. We put them on the agenda and we didn't discuss. Sometimes it was not fun. The results I got were not good.
3 minutes are,
Okay.
I just have to get my purse, I forgot.
okay, feel free. Well,
That's all.
Thank
I'm
you
done.
for your comments and the efforts to be civil and not to impugn individuals' character. Do we have another?
The last person is, I believe it says Tom Spain.
Okay.
Tom
I need
Spain.
to go up there?
Yep.
Okay. I might.
Okay,
Give me time, I'll make it.
he's coming.
Well, what I want to talk about is the sewer at the school,
Okay,
okay? You're familiar with it?
you betcha.
Anyway, I went up and witched around a while back, and I come up with a straight line, which they dug and didn't find nothing. Well, I'm using witching rods. Witching rods do not talk, okay? But they do reflect something in the ground. Okay, I went back up and looked around. I dug the ditch with an 18-inch bucket when I installed a pipe, and that's been a long time ago, so I don't remember everything. Anyway, I found the ditch where the pipe is at. The only thing that I called Jill and asked her to tell Ken to come up and I'd show him where the ditch was, because I can't dig anymore. So instead of getting a backhoe or some machine, I would recommend a post hole digger and just get some employee or something to dig down to the pipe. It should be somewhere between 5 feet and 5'6". And I guarantee you, you will find a pipe.
Okay,
If not, I'll pay for the doggone labor.
yeah.
But it's there, because I seen it. I don't, I can't understand why we haven't had this done,
Yeah.
because it's been 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? I called it in. I told you to tell Ken. I told Kevin.
Right here.
Yeah, I told Kevin, he told Ken, and I don't know what happened, but anyway, it ain't done. But I can't tell you exactly where the line goes yet,
because I was waiting to make sure that people seen the pipe, and that way they know it's there. It's not my guess.
Perfect.
And if my arthritis is bothering me, I can't witch, okay? But Jason says he can witch too. So, they will not, they don't talk to us, do they? They just show us there's something down there. The place where they dug before is, there's a water vein down there someplace, aquifer. It's something there, but then I can't tell you what it is.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll meet anybody that wants to meet me up at the school and grounds, the old school grounds, and show them where it's at. I'd like to dig it for you, but I can't do it.
Great. Okay, that concludes our public comment. It's not, there's not a topic related on our agenda, but as far as the schools, and as much as we did have a presentation, I was present when Mr. Spain did the witching, and we marked the lines, and the Paul Hillenberg, who was here, is the backhoe operator for Castle Rock School District. So I was watching him, and he did go down along those lines, well below the 6-foot mark, and there were no pipes there. But I'm hoping, Mr. Spain, that if you go back out there, I'll meet you there, and we can do it in the field where the building was at. That may do us better than in the parking lot area.
I think they would pour concrete over part of it on that driveway, on parking area. I'm not sure, Ken.
Okay. All right, but we'll take you up on your offer. Let's keep trying, and we'll see if we can find that pipe.
You let me know.
All right, I will. Does that help, council members? Alrighty, then with that, let's proceed with our official city business. We'll go to item 0, council discussion regarding resolution number 16-2017, the jail services contract. You have the paperwork in your packet.
Did we do the daily rate or the guaranteed rate last year?
The daily rate is what's recommended at this point. There's a motion at the bottom of the page if you want to read that.
I move to approve resolution 16-2017, authorizing the mayor to execute the interlocal agreement for jail services with Lewis County using the daily rate option.
Okay, you've heard the motion to approve resolution 16-2017 as noted. Do we have a second for that motion? You've heard a motion to approve the mayor, or authorize the mayor to consummate the resolution authorizing interlocal for jail services with Lewis County. Do I have a second? Oh.
I seconded it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Mr. Daly, there is a second. Any further council discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, well, that motion carries by a vote of 4-1. All right, and next to council action. Council to consider the code enforcement ordinance. Obviously, the council probably doesn't need reminding that last week we had a workshop with public in attendance, at which time we were able to analyze and discuss strategies to do whatever you feel inclined with regard to the ordinance that is under discussion. So now would be the opportunity of the council to engage in any commentary that however you see fit in relation to amending that ordinance or not. So I would open it up for council participation.
I still want to do the 2 courtesy letters. I want to push for that. I want to do the 2 courtesy letters before it gets to the attorney.
So that was one of the talking points.
And that'll take care of, the need for, it'll allow people to get it done or contest it without having a fee applied too, so.
And an opportunity to ask for help if they need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could point out that the city actually, in a previous situation, did send a letter. You could perhaps refer to it as a courtesy letter in a previous code enforcement situation. And we could utilize that as a format if the council is interested in doing that. So we have one available. It would be a very simple matter to modify it. We could prepare it and then bring it to the council meeting, next meeting if you'd like. So I think, in fact, that's a copy of it right there. So that's what I would throw out there. Edification. Yes.
In discussion of that idea with the city attorney, she didn't feel that needed to be written in the ordinance. It could just be a motion that council wants to direct staff to take that process first before applying the code enforcement ordinance. So if you want to make it a motion and it's like an official directive to do that.
I make a motion that we send out 2 courtesy letters to anyone who is in a code violation, giving them an opportunity to deal with it in a timely manner or to ask for help before it ever gets to the attorneys.
I'll second that.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
She said it as a motion.
Yes. I just found the courtesy letter that we were referring to before. So, all right, we've heard a motion to prepare 2 courtesy letters for submission to individuals prior to the actual submission of a notice of violation. Do you need to clarify?
I have a question on clarification.
Okay.
One question is, this is except if it's an emergency health issue that needs to be addressed immediately.
Yeah, that is stated in the ordinance.
That's stated in, the ordinance does have an emergency order situation where if there's an emergency, this is one reason why she recommends that this procedure be adopted as a policy and not as a law, because there are situations where there is a health situation where someone's life may be in danger and they need the right to be able to do it emergency, and not have to wait for the 2 courtesy letters if someone's life is in danger. And so I just want to make sure that that's clear, that if it's an emergency situation deemed by, as it's stated in the ordinance as to what an emergency situation, it's in the ordinance that explains that in the emergency situation, the 2 courtesy notices would not go out. The emergency situation would deem that it go out immediately.
So out of the 17 properties that we've ever sent code violation notices to, how many have been emergency?
1.
Only 1?
What was the emergency, can I ask?
The emergency was that there was no sewer or running water and people were living in the property with no utilities, and that's a health code violation that's beyond the city's purview. Even that's a county health regulation that you have to have water and sewer for someone to live there. So
Mr. Woods.
It's also a malfeasance of office
for letting an employee go on anybody, city employee go on anybody's property without a warrant. Period.
Okay. Well, that's a little off topic there, but it is pertinent. The actuality, the fact is that it is not a malfeasance for a city official to do that.
Well, it's a malfeasance against the law.
Yeah, no, it is not appropriate within the guidelines of this ordinance. You have state and county officials who do assessment work, for example. They are protected by state law to do that. But our ordinance states that before you're allowed to engage in that activity, you would need to get a warrant or get the consent of the property owner. So that could easily be done. But I don't think that we need to defend or not. I think that's an important point that ought to be brought up. But I don't think you necessarily even need to adapt the ordinance. You could include in the permit process the opportunity for the property owner to grant permission to the city in furtherance of the compliance of the permit. Does that make sense? So that's a way to do it. Well, of course, city council, you can do that, but I'm just telling you the facts.
Should we
look at some of the police reports you see, where some person shot somebody coming on their property, and they didn't do nothing to the person. Period. It happened up here, someplace up in the above Louisville, not too long ago.
I don't think that is comparable to a city doing its best to enforce the code enforcement activities or compliance issues of an ordinance.
They didn't have the right.
Yeah. Okay.
Should we restate the motion then to include emergency situations?
Disclude?
I suppose.
Is there guidelines specifically that, so we know exactly what's emergency?
It states in the, I'm not sure if it's in the code enforcement ordinance itself or if it's in the state regulations. I've read it in one or the other, and I can't tell you offhand.
Okay, but we've only had one case here that would qualify for that. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
It's on page 6. Emergency.
Okay.
But so I think it'd be a fairly simple matter.
I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that you understood that still needs to be able to happen. At least that's what the attorney tells us.
Rather than, I think we.
So we revised the motion that there'll be 2 courtesy letters that go out with a timely time frame for people to be able to get done what they need to get done, with the exception of an emergency, whatever you called it.
Okay, gotcha.
That work?
I think I can rephrase that. We've heard a motion submitted by Mrs. Hunter to approve the preparation of 2 courtesy letters in all cases, with the exception of a situation that might represent an emergency based on the article in the Okay. Did you catch that?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Then do we have a second for that motion?
I second it.
Second by Sudeo. All right. Any further commentary after a second? Okay. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay. Excellent. There's one. Okay.
Oh,
Okay, there's one adjustment. Others that have come to your...
I had a list of 5 items that I took away from the workshop, and the motion just now covered the first 2, a courtesy letter and then somehow direct notices to a help group. The remaining 3 that were requested were a better way to contest a notice, a separate code enforcement official, and a possible reduction in daily fine. So those were on my list of 5.
I think we discussed about having the sheriff at one point said that they do code enforcement. There was something said about
No, I think we discussed the possibility. I don't think that they volunteered to do it.
The building official.
The building official did indicate that they would be willing to embrace that activity without, I believe the concept was not increasing the overall cost of their services on an annual basis.
Do we know what that would look like? When would that be a couple of hours a week, or would it be as on an on-call? How?
Well, I would say that it depends entirely upon the aggressiveness of the city council to apply the intent of this ordinance.
I don't know if it's even the city council. I don't even know if it's that, Mayor. I think that because all of these were complaint driven so far, and we still have a list of complaints from citizens on houses that we haven't taken care of yet.
And these were just prioritized.
And we prioritized them off of that complaint list. So, I think we slowed down just because we had all these issues with people suing and the cost going up. And so we need to win some of these battles before we go on to the next ones.
Yep. So that's a circuitous answer to your question. How much impact would it have on our building inspector? It depends on how many of the notices of violations are sent. And we're working our way through.
How many of the letters are sent?
Yeah, the notices of violation. Oh, and courtesy letters.
Courtesy letter first.
Courtesy letters. Courtesy letters are going to solve a lot.
Yeah. I have to.
Public relations.
Okay. Yes. So we have an individual who'd like to speak. We have three councilmen.
Yep.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Question about building inspectors. What is the current status of a building inspector? Do we have one?
Yes, we do.
And who is that?
It's Les Townsend, his company. And he either does it himself or he sends one of his employees.
Okay.
We have a code enforcement official. The council, when the ordinance was approved, designated the city clerk to do that. But what I hear Mr. Shai saying, what I hear Mr. Shai saying is that it would be better if the city were to designate somebody other than the city clerk, which I'm fully supportive of. So I think that's what
city clerk.
Of course.
And you said that Townsend said that
They would do it. Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't
if the
increase our
council
costs.
wanted them to consider it. And they would encompass that within the contract that we work with them under.
So it's the $60.
Let me clarify,
Yes,
he
to
did
make
not
sure it's
say
clear.
that he would not, it wouldn't increase our costs. He bills by the hour. So
So
however
60,
much we
right.
use him, yes, but he said for code enforcement, he would only bill $60 an hour as opposed to, I think 80 is his standard fee for building. So he's billing us at a reduced rate for code enforcement.
But here again, we addressed that a little inconsistency here in our last council meeting. When, my understanding was that he would engage in those services, and from his perspective, he didn't think that it would require him to raise the accepted contracted.
What he said was that he felt that the code enforcement services fell under the current contract as it's written.
Okay.
So that he didn't think we needed to write an additional contract in order to use those services from him. And then he quoted that the price for those services would be at a reduced rate, $60 an hour for code enforcement.
So if we send out another 15 notices of violation, we could anticipate that might impact his contract.
Well, yeah, I mean, you pay me $23 an hour to do my job. If you're paying him to do the same job, you're paying him $60 an hour. Yes, it will cost more. However, I think the idea is that his experience would enable him to do it quicker and not have to spend so much time with the city attorney like I have to, because I don't know anything about code enforcement. I have to run everything I do through the city attorney. He will still have to run some things through the city attorney, but I think the hope is that he shouldn't have to run as much through the city attorney because he already has the knowledge base that I don't have.
Well, then right there, that could be a savings potentially.
It could be. However, we need to remember a lot of the attorney costs right now are due to people arguing it and fighting it, and that won't change. If people continue to fight and argue, then the attorney fees will still be there. We just don't know until we try it is one of the problems. It may save us money, it may cost us the same. I'm not sure.
Would it free up time for you to do your work in the office?
Yes.
As opposed to being out taking care of this kind of stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
It's become a very time consuming. I probably spend close to half my time right now on code enforcement issues.
Okay.
So we never anticipated it would take that much time, I think, for me to do that.
When you set something in motion, you discover in the application process the impact of such things. So we're in the learning phase here still. Mr. Wells.
I was always told when I was a contractor and also in the city that, number one, you had to be certified by the state. When I was shooting dynamite off in the state of Washington, I had to have a license permit and be certified.
There is no certification for code enforcement.
Right.
There is no what is a code enforcement if it isn't something you do? The electrician is a code enforcement.
If you can find a certification for code enforcement, great, but there is for a building inspector, but for code enforcement for the city, there is no certification that the state requires. Look, if you can find it, you'll be teaching all of us, because there is no. Okay, well.
No, she's not making the argument. If you find you're responsible to assist the city, the mayor, and those who are authorized to enforce these ordinances, if you can find where there is an Association of Washington Cities certification process for code enforcement official, find it, bring it to our attention. We want to add it.
And that's why you're getting 4 to 5 lawsuits, because they don't.
There is no.
We don't have no certified people.
Well,
there is no certification.
Well, isn't it true that
that's not entirely accurate?
I think it's true that I heard that Winlock has their public works people do it. Isn't that correct?
That's
their
what I
hourly
was
employees.
told. I don't know if that's fact.
So.
That's what the city clerk told me. They have people, guys that are out in the
It's their public works folks, like John.
They just call them and say, go look at this, and that's what they do.
I would like to clarify one thing. Okay. All the code enforcement action before any of it gets started is run by the building official. I give him pictures, I give him information, and if he's not sure about what he's seeing, he comes out and does the inspection before we even know if we have a case. He is that's why he also signs them. All I am is the administrative person. I'm not making decisions. I'm not the one who's saying this is or isn't. I'm giving that to him, and he tells me if that meets the code or not. If it doesn't meet the code, then I work with the attorney and we put together a letter. I don't make any decisions. Contrary to what everybody thinks, I don't make any decisions about that. The building official supports that, and that's why he signs them as well.
And while we're on that topic, I know that many of you and members of the public have heard these allegations that there's been a malfeasance on the part of the city clerk getting on property without permission. Yeah. And that may be accurate in this regard, but where there is the allegation that the city can be sued for such activity really demonstrates a lack of understanding of the law. Because that happened in one instance, And the reality is, if an individual employee who authorized by the city council to do code enforcement of this ordinance, which after where it specifically states that prior to entering on somebody's property to evaluate their compliance, you get the permission of the property owner, or you have a warrant issued by appropriate authority to access that property during the day when people might reasonably be there. If an employee fails to implement those elements of this, that does not expose them to being sued or the city council. Somebody could try that, but the state law protects employees, and if it's a good faith effort, they might threaten to sue, but that's their right to do that. But it would be dismissed as frivolous. I can, just in my experience working with the state board of the RMSA, I've learned that much. So you don't need to worry so much when you hear people claiming they're going to sue for trespassing by the city employee. It just is, it demonstrates their lack of understanding or their ignorance even. And I would point out that after it states that you are to get a warrant or permission from the property owner, the very next paragraph says that the code enforcement official will make a good faith effort to confirm whether or not the people are in compliance. So it even states within the ordinance that they're going to make a good faith effort. It's just unfortunate we've had the city clerk who's had been carry out the code enforcement activities of it. So I wanted to get that out there so that those of you who keep hearing people who claim you're going to get sued for trespassing, it's just, it's all frivolous, I can tell you. With that having been said, though, I'm fully in favor of shifting those responsibilities to anybody other than the city clerk. But I think we're in agreement with that. There.
Right. So do we need a motion? Do we need a motion for that, or do we need to start? So do we need to put in?
I think we're still considering who put in there.
Yeah,
I'm all in favor of the building official. I mean, we already have to go through him for information. We're already going through.
So you would take all your pictures and everything and give them to Townsend anyway?
That's what I do now.
So we're already using part of his services. He could just be.
He confirms everything to make sure, because I don't know the code.
Right.
I mean, and I'm not a professional at interpreting it, so I send everything to him. What would happen is that I would not be taking pictures. I would not be doing any of the documentation. I would not be you'd be paying him $60 an hour to do that. He would have to drive out and take all the pictures every time we have a problem. And he would have to be doing all of that. So you have to think about the cost. How are you going to pay for it? I totally want someone else to do it.
But she wouldn't get yelled at all the time.
I would be
that would be bad.
The one that everyone's mad at. That's the problem, is that everyone thinks it's me personally going after people, and I'm not making any of the decisions. I'm told what houses to go to. I'm told what the problems are, and I just go take the pictures and report it to them to try to save the city money so that they don't have to pay the building official $60 or $80 an hour to do it. That's the only reason I've been doing it.
And what about our John, our
He
city
doesn't.
works guy?
Our John.
He's not gonna.
I'm just curious. I'm just throwing it out there.
What would he do?
Same thing that you do, but just
He can't write up any of the letters. He can't do any of that. He doesn't even have access to the computer. I mean, what would he do? Go out and take pictures? That's the same thing I do. Why would he want to do
$60 an hour? I'm just trying to.
I believe that Mr. Wilson is making a fairly good point. It'd be good to have somebody who's at least got some experience and background in inspection processes, and it takes a special type of person.
No, you're not. You're here.
Okay, if I'm being distracted, so it's hard enough for me at my age to keep a train of thought. I think to ask our public works employee would put us in the same discomforting position that our city clerk is in. And he's got enough on his plate already, just trying to, as a part-time public works employee, I mean, this city is just functioning effectively like a well-oiled machine, but just within the financial means that we have available. So, whether people like to believe that or not, but that's the truth. And so, if we could at least address the qualifications that our city engineer, our building inspector's got, well, that's a positive, I would think. So, that's my 2 cents worth, since I have to administer these ordinances.
Would the courtesy letters go out before anybody had to do any inspection? If someone came in
Yes.
and complained, would it have to go through that whole process, or would the courtesy letters go out and say, your neighbor's complaining, blah, 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 however it works, and then be taken care of before anybody has to go out and do any pictures or anything? What's the steps there?
I believe so. I think if the city's gonna send a courtesy letter stating there's a problem, that we need to at least drive by and look and see if there's a problem. You know, typically we take a complaint that someone gives us and then we go out and look at it if there's any validity to it. So I would think a courtesy, I mean, I don't know what.
Well, and let me clear up this, because this might be the source of some misunderstanding down the road. It make it seem like if we get one complaint, then we're going to automatically set in motion a courtesy letter. And that's not how it has worked in the past, and I have no interest in engaging in that strategy. All of these need to be approved by the city council because it's going to have an impact on the budget and the financial, as we know from this experience. So just for public edification, matter of public record, if we get a complaint or 2 or 3, we'll document those and we'll bring them to a city council meeting, and you in this public forum can decide which of those, like you did in the past, you want
I
us to.
don't think that's
well, then
legally
I think
sound.
that would be what I would strongly suggest we do in the future, just so that you eliminate this sense that there's some favoritism being demonstrated in the selection process. Does that make sense? So I hope the council members will be sensitive to that.
That is number 6.
I believe in like we're talking about, a public relation letter, a courtesy letter, before you send out a big bill or something like this and fine or something else, be a little nice to the person. That's my public relations, the way I work.
Yeah.
That's what I like to see that way.
I have to tell you that it's also misperception. And when we first started this, one of the first individuals that we did send a letter, and this is it. And this individual is seated in this room at this very moment. And it wasn't a notice of violation, it was it's the format for a courtesy letter, and it brought no response, essentially. So I'm not going to sit here and say that just being polite. Thank you, Tommy. We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much for that.
You betcha. Thanks for coming. So let's not pretend or kid ourselves. These courtesy letters, if they don't bring out a response, then we get to initiate the notices of violation. I just show that as historical evidence that that's not going to necessarily work. It depends entirely on the attitude of the recipient and how they respond to the city's efforts to improve it for everybody. Okay, so where were we?
Separate code enforcement official.
Yes. Do we want to make that a change and a modification in the ordinance?
I absolutely want to pursue it.
Okay. Should we make that a motion?
Well, what is it that you want to have happen at this point in order to make that happen?
Should we get in touch with our building official again and see if he can give us an estimate on what he might think how many hours of time it would take for whatever an average notice might be?
We can sure ask.
I mean, so we can get an idea if we're getting in over our heads with the finances.
That wouldn't take a motion if you want us to research that.
Yeah, that
It'd be
doesn't
a
take a
simple
motion.
matter.
I don't think we can solve it right here tonight, but I think we need to get some more information.
Okay.
Okay.
We know how much he'll cost. How much per hour, but how many hours do you think it's going to take?
Some kind of an estimate, yeah, okay.
You said, okay, got that. That's good. We do have an individual who wants to make a comment. 1, 2, 3.
Just a suggestion, maybe do like a bid type of a situation for individuals that are in the industry to see who would offer the best price for the work that would need to be done. Maybe we could put a public notice bid out for the city for something along those lines.
We could certainly explore that in our
Yeah.
research and
Yeah,
come
we-
under the research.
Because we had looked at different building inspectors, and he certainly was one of the least expensive we could find. But we've never really pursued code enforcement only.
Right.
We haven't, right. Okay,
So we are kind of running blind at this.
Okay, that seems sensitivity. Okay, comment?
Who calculates the daily fines?
It's calculated by the ordinance.
Calculated by the ordinance that you voted on.
No, okay, back up. Wrong answer, wrong answer. Who, I have a code violation, my grass is too tall and you're charging me $500 a day. And I come in a month or something and you owe me $300,000, Judy. Who's been calculating that?
Well, so when the notice goes out, there's a date on it, kind of a drop dead date. So this needs to be taken care of by this date,
Okay.
and then from that day forward, it starts calculating.
But that date isn't when you get the notice of violation. You get the notice of violation.
Right.
You say, hey, your grass is too long. You have 30 days to mow it, or whatever you need to do to get it done.
Okay.
And then if you say, forget you, I'm not mowing my grass, I like it long so that I can't see anything, then after that, the fines start adding up.
Okay, when the fines start adding up, is what I'm talking about. Does the attorney do it? Does Jill do it? Do I sit at home and do it? How is it calculated? I mean, who does that? I mean, whose time is spent? Do you see what I'm saying?
So we're going to go check the property each day
Who counts
afterwards?
the days?
Who's sitting there counting the days and saying, oh, there's
Well,
$20
geez, you got 4 violations.
It's an
there's
Excel,
$500
it's an
a day
Excel
in
spreadsheet
violation.
that
Okay,
says.
here's what I want to know. It's an
It's
Excel
an
spreadsheet.
Excel, you just use an Excel spreadsheet and you put the dates in. The date after the due date is day 1, and that's $500, and then you just
And you keep
listing
filling
the
out the
dates
spreadsheet.
until.
Okay, my question
until-
is who does that? Do you do that, or does someone do that to keep that in these individual cases?
Excel, you don't have to fill it out. It's programmed to do it for you. It's automatic.
Are you asking who creates the spreadsheet?
Yes, and who maintains the spreadsheet? I guess that's what I'm asking you. Is that something that you can just walk in on day 28 and you say, Judy, you owe X amount of dollars according to your spreadsheet here? I just curious if
We don't keep it up every day. We update it as needed.
Okay, that's what I needed. That was my question, because I'm trying to see if there could be money saved not having staff or an attorney doing that.
Oh yeah,
No.
they're not. I don't believe you're not reviewing it on a daily basis. No.
Not
Yeah.
only
Okay,
as
that was
needed.
my question, because you've got 17 violations and you've got all these spreadsheets going and these fines and figures and that kind of thing. That was my point, I'm sorry.
We don't sit and calculate the fines
Okay,
every day.
okay.
No, not at all.
That's horrible.
We got the $1 million.
But that was a good question, because that was one of the talking points at the workshop. Complaints, concerns, and about the $500 a day. I mean, who could deny that it isn't onerous, and it certainly is ominous. But hey, when this ordinance was first drafted, there wasn't. It was a one-time penalty, and then every day would go by, and it was the same thing. If they didn't pay the $500, and so that's when it didn't motivate anybody to do anything. So that's when the council revisited and said, like other such code and ordinances in other communities, to up the ante a bit, up the motivation. They said, well, each day that is non-compliance, it adds up.
that also makes us be able to recoup our costs for attorney fees. It gives us something to grab onto.
Yeah. We have a situation in process. I'm not going to discuss it, but if it were to proceed into Superior Court, for example, then your potential attorneys and legal costs, it's going to go up exponentially. And that's when we'll really discover how committed we are to carry out to this ordinance. And it's also quite revealing in the process of doing our best to enforce this community-wide effort, which represents I think confidently, the majority of the residents of this community who would like this community to gravitate out of the dump category, that it will test our will to see if we're willing to expend the legal resources to defend this ordinance. And we'll find out here shortly where we're at in this ongoing legal entanglement that's evident that occurred this past week. So we'll see.
Well, I think that $500 a day fee, just running everybody out of the city, because of the fact is that $500 a day penalty for that issue is okay with me. But when you say $500 a day for the same penalty over and over and over again, you aren't helping the citizens. That's my feeling.
Sure.
Well, Andy, what do you think is a fair daily rate?
You what?
What do you think would be a fair daily fine?
Well, I can say a week or 2 weeks. It gives a person time to think.
Right. Well, after that, after they still don't do anything, then what do we charge them? Right.
What now, Joe?
After they don't do anything, right? We give them the 2 weeks,
Right.
4 weeks, 60 days, whatever it is.
Then I would raise the fine if they didn't do it.
What fine?
How much?
Because right now we don't charge them. Right now it's zero until
Say
for 60 days or whatever.
30 days to do this fight
Sure.
for $500. 30 days. After 30 days, then we could raise it to a higher fee. And then you keep going.
But that's what we're doing.
You want the flat fee.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, but at $500 a day for 30 days.
But that only comes after they don't meet the deadline.
I think
If they meet the deadline, they don't get anything. They get 0 fines if they meet the deadline. If they call and ask us for an extension on the deadline, 0 fines.
Well, what's your deadline?
It depends on the item. Depends on what the problem is.
What's the shortest ever been?
The shortest it's ever been is 2 weeks.
I think more time myself. Time the person for the.
Most of them
person-
get a month. Most of them get about a month.
But
Some of them get more. And if they call and say, I need more, they get more.
Oh,
And then they say, I need more again, they get more again, without fines. All of this, all they have to do is call.
I don't think that's businesslike.
But Ms. Wilson, you approved the ordinance, so, and now you're having second
That's the
thoughts,
way
of
it's
course.
been.
I'm having a
But-
lot of problems with it because I don't like to see people suing the city, which is gonna cost you and I to turn this city over to nothing. Jill's sitting there laughing at me about it.
That is not laughing, but because I can tell you that isn't the objective. And I have to be perfectly candid here. To make a comment that we're chasing people out of town, you must remember that we're hitting about a 65% compliance rate. So that's not evidence that and we've only sent out 14 or 15 of these notice of violation. So if you do the arithmetic, 2/3 of 15 is 5 are not compliant. And so 10 are not engaging in these fees, fines, and penalties. So to over-exaggerate kind of feeds into the undercurrent of this community that we're trying to drive people out. We're trying to fine, penalize, punish, and torment these people. That is just not true.
Well, I want to
So-
see the city survive. period.
Well, survive and thrive, and
I'm
maybe
the oldest
improve.
member here and been the oldest citizen.
Right.
I want to see it stay healthy. I want to see it that survive. It don't
Good.
survive if you end up with nothing in your budget.
Well, yeah, that's why we're having this discussion, because attorney's fees are impacting our budget.
Yes,
So,
they are.
now the question was, what should the fine be? $500? Should it be $500 for, or could it be $250 for 10 days, and then $300 for the next 10 days of non-compliance? This is not that complicated.
Well, you
I
have
think
an
that-
idea. You have an idea. This is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of. Think of it a little bit.
Yeah, you're responding. Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking that it might be just a miscommunication on a lot of this, because my son-in-law, after the workshop, was like, "Okay, you got to explain to me, how does this work?" Because he was under the impression that it was once you get the notice of default or violation, it's $500 a day after that. And he's going, that just doesn't sound right. And it's not right. What it is, we send out, now we're going to send out a letter, and we give them, I don't know if we even decided what the time frame was, say 30 days for the letter, and then 30 days for the 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 letters.
Oh, 2 letters. Okay, I like 2 weeks. So 2 letters. So we got 2 letters. That's 30 days of warning. Right, what we were doing is we were sending the notice of violation, and 30 days or 2 weeks at the shortest, but there's also been some that were 60 days or 90 days to come into compliance with whatever it is. There's no fees or penalties or anything at that point. So all that time goes by, and if they don't respond, that's when these penalties come into effect. It doesn't happen automatically. It's, hey, you've got this issue, you've got time to take care of it. And people that I've talked to, they get that letter or whatever, and they come to the city and they talk to the people, and we have voted on extending those things. We did a lot of them. We extended them with no issues. But it's the people that just ignore it or don't do anything that is the issue that we're having.
Yeah, that's what I said.
So I think that the whole thing works phenomenal. It's just, and the PR thing, I agree. I think it's going to be just that much softer of a blow.
It's not just softer, it's going to save us money. Because if our first letter is an attorney letter, we paid for that thing. Let's not pay for that first letter, that second letter. Save ourselves some attorney's fees.
And also to get the word out that there's people that will help you if you can.
Is that the letter right there that we sent out before?
Each one is different. This is not it.
Oh, okay.
Three different files here. This was the letter that was sent out as kind of the one we'd use as a prototype of the courtesy letter, dated June 29th, 2017. I could get a copy. But then that was not a formal notice of approval. Yes. Would the council like to hear? You got it.
I just, a thought. At the end of the road, $100 a day, which is still a big fine to everybody in this town. But if I come in here after I get my whatever fine and it's racked up, you all will waiver it. Now, I've heard that about 3 different times in this council, that all I have to do is bring all of my little paperwork in here, and the council has the approval, or makes the approval, whether it can be waived. So it's kind of a mixed message that we're sending by doing the $500. Yes or no? I'm just
No.
questioning.
No, because the mixed message is that we're going to wipe it out altogether, because that doesn't have to happen. We can, but if we have to go to court, if we have to spend $11,000 for an attorney, we got to have something to recoup that. So the best thing to do is just fix the problem. To me, that's the easiest solution. That's what 10 of these other people did. They just fixed the problem. And I think that a lot of people are saying, oh, it's Jill, oh, it's the mayor, oh, it's favoritism. It's not. We got complaints. You had multiple complaints on some houses right next door to yours.
I still do, and they're still there.
Yes, and wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to deal with this, if everybody just took care of it and we could get on to those ones? But we can't. We got to finish this.
Let me be clear, because if there's one thing that frosts me is misinformation. Those two are on our list, and the owners have been informed that they've been boarded up and that there's a deadline for that, and they are going to be processed as the rest are. So don't sit and spread word throughout the community that there is a bias, that nothing is being done. I just have to get that out there in the public information there. So I hope that helps. And if you have a situation like that, don't fester and send it around the community. Come in and find out the facts. It makes such a difference in this community. If we could work together and try to overcome the contention in this community. So
And
I had to get that out there.
Those houses, for instance, those specific houses.
I don't.
We-
Do you mind if I don't have a one-on-one anymore?
Okay.
And all of this, the mayor
We wanted to
beating
hear
up
your
on me, I
comment.
don't appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. And Mike, I don't appreciate you. I'm trying to ask questions.
I'm going to interrupt here, but that was a simple expression of facts. It's however you take it is your choice, but this is not an interrogation. I appreciate that. So, but I had to get the facts out there, in as much as this is the council's meeting, and we're discussing this ordinance that has been the subject of so much misinformation.
I would like to ask the council if we'd want to table this. We'd get some work done on this ordinance tonight, and table this for the next meeting and continue working on it later. We still have more work, and we started out constructive, and now we've kind of gone down a rat hole, and I'd like to get constructive on
I
it
think
again.
that-
Well, emotions are not destructive.
No, I'm just
This
saying
is a very volatile
that
issue.
we.
I think that this is a good point, though, on two houses that are on B Street. We did send a courtesy letter. We sent a courtesy letter to them, letting them know, hey, your house is boarded up. It can't be that way forever.
Right.
And that's all that we've done. And they've said, oh, we're going to take care of it. Still nothing done. Still nothing done. So we have sent out these courtesy letters. Don't take me wrong. I like the idea. But we're still going to have those issues where they just don't.
Of course you are.
Respond,
But even if it just
and-
works on 50, 60% of the time, 30% of the time, it's gonna help.
Yeah.
Any little help is going to be better than nothing.
We already passed the courtesy letters.
I know.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree
I'm
with
just-
Joe. Let's just put it down underneath the table for another meeting.
There's a lot. It's a lot to cover, and we already covered some, and we got some good work done. And we'll start off on a positive tone again next time.
We are looking into more of the building official, right? We did agree on
Yep,
that.
we
Okay, perfect.
we got courtesy letters taken care of, how to help some folks out, and investigating a separate code enforcement official.
And would you like us to research potential options as far as the onerous $500 fine, the daily thing? We could do that research and give options to the next council meeting
What,
too.
I'm confused about what's the research you mean.
There was concerns in the workshop. It's been brought up here that people are upset by the fact that after they've not complied with the two, whatever it is, we've got that, $500. And there was sentiment that I discerned, and which I'm supportive of, not making it as egregious or punitive as $500 a day. There was been some talk, I don't think we decided anything, we shouldn't, but we'd be, I think as a mayor, I'd be willing to engage in that research and give you an option or two at our next council meeting.
I think though that $500 a day was not just us deciding. We already did that research when we came up with it.
Yeah.
And that's what we followed the other cities
Yeah. No, exactly. No, I think that's more
to
normal
do the same
than not.
thing.
And we're just trying to be sensitive to the impact, psychological impact that it has on our residents.
And that's what it is. It's a
I'm not
psychological
advocating this.
impact. I mean, in the end, I hate saying it, but we've never had anyone pay us $500 a day for anything at this point. We've never collected any of that, anything like that. We've had a $500 fine, but not, we've never acted on it.
Yeah.
And the intent was never really, hopefully, to act on it, because that was supposed to be an incentive,
Yeah.
not to be an actual, after 3 months of mow your grass, you're supposed to mow your grass, not wait $500 a day after that for not mowing your grass.
Just to make a point.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't.
And that's, I think, the mixed message that has emerged from this, as was mentioned. It's like if you say that you're going to have these daily fees, but then inform the public in a city council meeting that, oh, by the way, it's legal for the city, if they do come in compliance, to waive all the fees. There's nothing to stop a city from doing that. Then you do send a mixed message. Well, why don't they just say, okay, I'll wait 2 years, I'll get $5 million of collected fines, and then I'll fix my problem, and then they'll just waive my fees. So that is a mixed message, for sure. But that's when you have a city council that represents the city, that has a heart and listens to people, despite what people want to allege in the community. If you're sensitive to that, then you will deal with a mixed message. So, but I think that's part of how we're going to polish this ordinance. So, would you like us to engage and put together 2 little formulas, so that the council can fidget with it at our next meeting?
Sure. Be good to see some options.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe some
In addition to the
comparable
other 2
cities do.
Okay, very good. All right.
You gonna move on to cats?
Well, if that concludes the council discussion of that ordinance, let me commend you for your sensitivity and your responsivity to this. So yes, so let's proceed next with our agenda, which is a council discussion on cat control efforts. And you obviously know that this was raised and has been the topic of numerous things over my 10-year experience as mayor. We've had Seattle TV trucks come down, and we've become famous with our cat issues. We've had cat control committees for several years in this community, and the council, of course, sensitively has established an animal control fund of $500, in which if a resident conscientiously can catch a feral cat, that will contribute to the processing of that. I don't understand.
Actually, council also agreed to pay $15 towards a pet cat to get fixed as well. So all they have to do is bring us the receipt that shows that they live in the city and that their pet was fixed, and they'll get $15. The city will reimburse them $15. We have had Mr. Gross's wife has caught some feral cats and taken them into the program that does them for $15 each, and we sent them a check, and they brought us the receipts, and we sent them a check for 4 cats. So that's where we're at with the cats.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and so I think the council wanted this on the agenda as sensitivity to a resident who obviously was not aware of all that had been done and was just curious to find out what. So we have a comment from concerned citizens.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that my wife that's been doing a lot of the trapping and getting the fixing done found a location that actually will do it for $10 a cat. And I believe she passed that information on to Diane recently.
Wow. That's possible. Okay. Yeah, there's, well, and as mayor, I am hypersensitive. I'm not going to make an editorial comment about how people think nothing is getting done in this community. If they only knew. But so we have to do a better job of getting the word out. It's just amazing. Okay, item number 3, the council discussion on street weight limit regulations. This is good.
But I, myself, I don't know anymore how much a truckload of gravel would cost, but in the weight limit for that truck, to me, we have should have one limit, say for the truck itself, like a 20,000 weight truck. Is that close enough just for the truck?
It's about
Where
30.
I would,
about
They're
30.
more than that. A single axle truck is
Excuse me,
less
but
than
unfortunately,
I'm sorry.
Pastor, we've got to just raise your hand. We'll get the approval because they have to approve. You want to hear a comment? 1, 2, 3, got it.
Because I did call the gravel over at Toledo and asked them about their weight limits, the trucks that they have. There's only one truck currently in the end of the county that hauls less than 20,000 pounds, a single axle truck. There's only one. A full-sized dump truck is 59,000 pounds, fully loaded, according to them.
Normal size.
Normal size, 12-yard load, 59,000 pounds.
Yep. And this is what we discussed before, and we're waiting. We need to get the revision and what we want on the revision, because we already discussed this, and we just wanted it so that residents can have their gravel delivered without costing $600 to get home improvement done.
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
Yeah, and so this is going, it's in the process, and do we need something else?
The city, I gave your concerns to the city attorney. She wrote up an amendment trying to cover what she thought, you guys wanted. And you guys looked at it in June and you didn't like it. And you said this whole ordinance is too complicated. We don't want to amend it. You said we want a simpler ordinance. So that's where it was left. The city attorney doesn't know how to do a simpler ordinance that covers the city's rear end in court. So she needs to know what you want it to say to be simpler. And she's not going to give you guys a document that doesn't protect the city. That's her job as the attorney, is to give you, try to give you what you want, at the same time protect you. And she needs to know how you want it to look, because it's got to be constitutionally sound. We can't exclude somebody because they are a business as opposed to a residential, or there's certain constitutional things that she won't write in an ordinance because it's not constitutionally sound. So she needs to know, what do you want? She needs to know what you want to take out of this ordinance. This is a copy again.
What number is
of
that?
The ordinance.
What ordinance number is
It's
it?
the ordinance is passed is 2014-07.
Okay.
And she needs to know how you want it to be different.
All right.
Because she doesn't know what to do at this point to provide you with what she provided. You guys didn't like, so.
Is this isn't what she provided?
No, this is the actual ordinance.
The actual ordinance, okay.
Yeah.
This is the original.
The original.
From back in the
I don't know
day.
what to tell her at this point to do.
Well, I don't think it's that complicated. Okay.
But at that meeting, and actually I was the one that said I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but this was like mud to me. You said, even she said, that this was very difficult and confusing.
Okay.
She did, yeah. And I distinctly remember that discussion in which the council was perplexed by this, because I don't think any of you wanted to punish the residents, but in order to get something on the books, we passed it, but on the caveat that you were going to come back and refine it, because you can always amend an ordinance. And so That's what's gotten us into this little pickle pot. But I personally don't think it's going to be that complicated. If you just put in a sentence or two indicating that if a private individual wants to bring gravel into their driveway, that if it's one load, they don't need to submit a request for a permit. That's
Just
how
notify
complicated
the
is that?
city.
No,
What if it's 2 loads? What if it's lumber to fix the side of their house? What if it's roofing material?
Okay.
I mean, that's where it gets, it's not as simple as you want it to be.
Well, yeah, but I don't think we need to excessively complicate it. You just have a sliding scale of some sort. Until we can put a man on the moon, I'm sure.
I think that what our attorney gave us last time was super close, except there was something on it that, and I'm sorry I don't have it here.
I didn't think about giving you that copy.
There was something that I didn't. There was a little twerk about something in there. Anyway, maybe what we need to do is get a copy of that again, the proposed amendment, and then table it for our next meeting.
You said it was June that you provided that to us?
Yes.
So we can look back in our stack of
Yeah, or I
ordinances.
can provide you another copy, or the packet should be online, so you can look there as well. I believe it was June 9th was the date.
All right,
June
yeah, it
8th
should all
maybe.
be
Thursday was the 8th.
should all online. That's pretty good.
We did have an individual wanting to comment from the audience. Councilor, go for it.
Another item that has to be addressed in that is the traffic study. I read this because we didn't want to be in violation of city ordinances by the trucks that traveled 1 block across A Street over to deliver our supplies for the paving. However, if we were to be in compliance with that, we would have to do a traffic study before a permit could even be, and we would have to hire an engineer, or it says right in there, their engineer must provide a traffic study. Well, how do we do that? We could not be in compliance, and if I could suggest perhaps a daily, a person could get an exemption for a day, not a wait, but a day. That way you do away with how many weights, how many loads, half a truck, a full truck, how many pounds. Give them a 1-day exemption to haul their gravel, make sure they have it on that day, and that would be very, very simple to do so.
Yeah, this ordinance was written for the case where they're going to bring trees off the hills for 3 weeks straight with log trucks right through the middle of town. That's what it's written for. It's not written for the assembly who wants to pave the parking lot with 2 loads of gravel. So we need to...
I think that what also needs to be brought to everybody's attention is right now, because we're discussing this, we don't have a regulation in place. And so the tractor that got delivered to my house, that might have been overweight, I didn't weigh it. We don't have a regulation right now, so I didn't have to worry about that. That also could have been called straight to me instead of the city, but that's okay.
Okay, do we have another comment from the public? I'm looking for...
I think anybody that has questions about what's going on in this community has a right to be concerned about what's going on, and coming through the office is the absolutely proper way to do it. Instead of trying to confront somebody on a personal basis, face to face, that way there is no problems. And everybody in this community has a right to do that.
That's it. That's absolutely right. Okay. All right. Is that? Are we coming to some kind of conclusion with regard to this?
I'd have to review it a little bit more.
Okay.
So am I understanding that council wants to review that amendment again and
Yes.
redirect as to how you want it to be changed? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I believe that we opened it up for residents to have loads delivered at their house.
And I think that's what the amendment did, but I want to read it again because there was something in there that we were all like, wait, what about this?
Just like it contradicted. You
Yes.
said one thing, and then you read a little farther, and it said, okay, that's not right. You read a little farther, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we can run the potential options by our city attorney, including some concepts of an exemption or the what-if
Well, no, what they're
scenarios.
saying is they're gonna review the amendment that she provided before and figure out what was wrong with it. And we'll talk about that at the next council meeting, what was wrong with it, and then at that point, we'll know what to take to the attorney to have changes made, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm on board. I got you. Okay, I don't think we need a motion. We've just got the consensus of the council to
Got this one rolling again.
all right.
That's good.
Now let's, excuse me, if we could, it kind of disrupted the communication now, so I'm very sensitive, my hearing aids are hyper set. So the next council discussion involves update on stormwater projects, including Annanen Road. Yes.
Well, I started on Annanen Road in 1980. And Annanen Road belonged to Burlington Northern Railroad, period.
Okay.
What can we do? The city of Vader got together with the Lewis County Road Department, which took it over, and they were the ones that put the original blacktop on Annanen Road, because prior to that, when I came here in town, it was nothing but potholes and gravel and everything else. That was when Jason was just a little snot-nosed kid. He can tell you that.
Well, back in June, I talked to Burlington Northern, and Burlington Northern said it's not ours, it's Lewis County. And so I talked to Lewis County, and Lewis County says it's not ours, it's Burlington Northern's.
There's a letter I have.
And so, you know, and you're under the impression that it
Can
is
both of them sign it
Burlington.
over to us?
We don't want it.
No, we don't want it.
That whole intersection, Jason will attest to this, the whole thing's messed up between the drainage and the road. I mean, who knows how much of
That
it.
road was never messed up like that until the drainage got messed
Yeah,
up.
so we don't want to have to own it and fix it.
No.
Well,
I was involved with that.
Which the only, you know, back to the discussion on this, from the smoke test that was performed, I mean, the only thing that, I mean, everything came out at the railroad track, so everything, the only thing that's been changed since then below that is where the PUD underneath the road, so, I mean,
That's where it's backing up.
that's gotta be where it's backing up,
It's
and
not
then,
even getting there.
yeah.
Can
I think actually, all right, okay, I have to weigh in here because I think I can break this deadlock.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, with the storm drainage, with the smoke testing, I think I dropped the ball on that because a couple meetings ago when we reported that and showed you the pictures, I think council told me to give that stuff to the engineer and have the engineer take a look at it and give us a recommendation as to, you know, what does this mean? What does, you know, we're seeing all the smoke coming out here. To us, it means the railroad has done something, but what does this mean? I think council told me to do that, and I have not done that. So that's one issue with the storm drain. The other is that when we did research years ago with Mr. Wilson's information, is that we found that Annanen Road was owned by the railroad.
Well, you
It
stole my
went
thunder.
back to the railroad. Sorry,
For
I stole
heaven's
your thunder. And so, and they don't want to do anything with it at this point, but they may have to if we find that their storm, whatever they did has affected the storm drain and created the problems down there. We're working on that. We just got a $5,000 grant for some of our storm drain cleanup. We got to get that expended before before November 30th so that we can get the rest, so we can get that grant money. So John's back from vacation now, so we're going to be hitting that hard and heavy in the next several weeks to get some storm drain stuff. I don't know that it's going to resolve things down there by Annanen Road yet, because I'm guessing that's going to be a bigger project, but it's going to get us going anyways. and it will help us get some equipment so we can keep up our storm drains that are still working on a regular basis.
What confuses me is that you guys, we
Mr.
always.
Wilson actually had the floor. You're next. Please.
Okay, a little history to that, and Tommy Spain, if he was here, would say, yes, we done it. Him and his son had a manhole, sewer manhole, that goes this way, goes all the way down to the sewer lagoon. We found, I don't know if I was mayor or afterwards or before or whatever, but they found that the water, the storm water, was going through this and going right into the sewer. And so the sewer lagoon was getting all kinds of water during the winter. Well, so they went in and put a 6-inch piece of pipe about like this in this manhole that's grouted in from one part of the storm drain to the other. It was working fine. Then later on, it started leaking again, but it wasn't leaking where they started digging. It was leaking from the railroad track down to the Holy Cross, period. And Burlington Northern came in, and the mayor was standing there with Ross McDowell and myself. I watched Burlington Northern take their backhoe and dig up the old red clay tile that our storm drain was at that time, and just taking it out this, and I said,
How long ago was that, Andy?
Yeah, huh?
How long ago was that?
How long?
Wasn't that when the sinkhole emerged and the crossing arm started
No.
to tilt?
Yeah.
It was before that?
That, I don't even remember
I have
that.
no memory.
That new crossing was put in like
But anyway,
25 years ago. That's what we're talking about.
Kind of voiced my opinion, but that was Burlington Northern.
Okay. Excellent. Well, okay, Mr. Lee.
Well, what baffles me is that we even with the pictures after doing the smoke test, and like he said, Burlington Northern came in after we started having the water problems to fix that railroad crossing because it was going to fall because of and it was just the year before that they started doing that. They did the PUD underneath the road, and that's the only thing that has changed in the last 4 years. That's caused that water to redirect.
If I might ask, where did the PUD do their work under the road? Was it north and south, crossing by the railroad?
It's north and south, and it's between the cafe and the bridge.
So you think
Water's still going.
You think they fixed the break in the stormwater pipe that's underneath 506?
Yeah.
PUD?
No.
He's saying the PUD punched under
Oh,
the.
east of your
the road,
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm confused.
But I still say that now, where his water's coming from, is coming from where they dug that up, and it's just seeping. He's seeping to the railroad track, and it can't go underneath the railroad tracks unless it just washes out, so they fixed it, and there it is, and that culvert on by the arm.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I think that is we'll discover if our engineer can go out and do his thing, we'll discover. And if that is in fact the case, then I think we could make a very compelling argument to Burlington Northern, who, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, that we could show with the records that were given to us by Lewis County that Burlington Northern controls that section of Annan Road up to the water main, about 200 yards. Jason, you know where that's at. They own that section. And so, now we don't have it isn't it going to go to court to find out who it is, but I would, I'm very confident, like Joe was saying.
Excuse me, in 1980, they were gonna put a gate up it.
Yeah, they could do that. They said they
Do
could.
that if they want, yeah.
Yeah, and they could put a gate down by that water main. And so they said, if there's more complaints going on, they'll do that.
Guy Chastain went to Seattle, and we went to
They
Tacoma.
That is that's our escape route if that other bridge goes out. I don't think they can do that.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to, but
Well,
yeah,
at
for
least
sure.
they didn't put the gate up.
But here's the point is, if we can show that water, stormwater, they're going to point to the city and say, hey, look, that hill, because that's what they did one time when I was there. And we were talking about that broken stormwater line underneath 506, which may still be there. It's if PUD didn't fix it, and it didn't sound like they did. So that stormwater is still going into that hole that was trenched by Burlington Northern when the sinkhole came. So all that water is oozing under the railroad tracks. And I can tell you that if this city informed them that we are aware of stormwater that's flowing under your tracks, undermining those tracks, is posing a serious hazard to this community. Because I was told by one of their engineers when we were trying to figure out who would do something, the one thing that did get their attention was seeing flowing surface water going underneath their tracks. It compromises the bed of those things. So we need to get our city engineer out there to do his thing, now that we've done the smoke testing. So my thought is, I'm game to do it. So, but that's where we're at as far as stormwater projects, including Annan Road. And frankly, if we've done this before, it may be that if we do present a serious case to them, we've considered in the past conjoining with Burlington Northern and helping pave that by our only significant revenue business producing in the community. But there were members on the city council who adamantly said they would never approve $1 of the city's money going to pave any portion of that road. If you want to look up the old city council minutes, it should be there. So we won't dig into that. But so city, I think, is sensitive to the problem there. That's all I've got.
So we're going to have the engineer look into it. Is what we're going to do.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, bottom line here. We're going for a record here. Number 5, council discussion on limb disposal site.
I contacted John Jags, I believe is the company called. They are the company that the county used to contract with to bring a belly grinder out and grind up the stuff. He had a fire go through his yard and he lost almost all of his equipment, including the belly grinder. He does still have 43-foot, 125 yard trucks that he would be able to come out there, pick up all the branches and take it to another belly grinder somewhere else. And I met with him out there today, and he's going to get me a bid. I was hoping that I would have it by this meeting, but I didn't. So that's what's going on with that. And then I started to talk to him a little bit about future, how to maintain it so that we can maybe keep that out there for the residents, because it is very valuable to a lot of people, but we just can't let it get carried away. So that's and then while he was out there, and since he lost all of his equipment, I showed him the excavator that was out there, and he might be interested in doing some type of partial trade or something like that. So we might be able to get rid of that excavator, which the engine is all apart right now. The head's off of it, and get our limbs taken care of. But that's all I have on it.
Okay. Well, I can tell you I went there this morning and examined that pile. It is monstrous, but since council approved the installation of a cable, and we noted it on the city's announcement board, people have been cooperative, and no additional logs and limbs have been taken there. Although it is quite disconcerting to see some of the garbage that has been added by some of our residents. And of course, some have taken trees that are about that big around, and they've just taken them out there too. So it's mystifying.
Those ones should just be pulled off to the side and cut into firewood for somebody.
Yeah. But if they're buried, it's hard to get at them. So it's a problem. But people still have taken stuff down there, even with cable, but I think they're taking them by wheelbarrow. And so it is what it is. But nonetheless, at least we're sensitive, and we'll get rid of that pile because it is huge. And it needs to be handled.
He's thinking that it's going to be, I don't know if I said this, it's late. He's thinking it's going to be about maybe 4 or 5 of those big trucks.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
So-
no estimate yet.
No estimate yet.
Thank you for looking at that.
Yeah,
That's good
thank you
information.
for following up on that. All right, well, that actually took care of items 5 and 6. So, if there are no other council comments, and there are no other agenda items, I declare this council meeting closed at 8:39 p.m.